Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Makerspace through the Region of Waterloo Library. My name is Holly. Today on Makerspace, I'm going to show you how to make some homemade silly putty, or as others call it, thinking putty. So this is a good idea if you're finding things a little bit stressful right now with going back to school, whether it's online or in person. It's a nice little fidget toy or a stress toy for kids to make. Okay, so you need some glue. Food coloring is optional. It is nice to give your silly putty or thinking putty a little bit of color if you like that. Or maybe add in a little bit of glitter too, might be kind of fun. I've got some water here in a bowl, a measuring spoon, and my borax solution. So my borax solution, I use 2 cups of warm water or hot water, and about a half a teaspoon of borax is in there. So I've already did that and it's ready to go. You have to give borax a good stir, so every now and again even give it a stir to keep it active, and so that you don't have granules of borax in whatever it is you're making. So we're going to measure out a tablespoon of white glue. So you can use just a regular tablespoon or you can use a measuring spoon. Almost there. Now if you want a bigger amount of silly putty, you could use 2 tablespoons. So whatever you decide, whether it's 1 tablespoon of glue and 1 tablespoon of water, or 2 tablespoons of glue and 2 tablespoons of water, just make sure your ratios are about the same. So I'm just going to dip this right in my water and measure out a large dollop of water. So I'm just going to use this as well. Actually, I have a spoon here that I could use to get all that glue out of my measuring device. Just set that aside. And I'm going to add a couple of drops of green food coloring today to make my silly putty green. The more food coloring you add, just the darker color you'll have. And so you're going to make sure that your water and glue mixture, and if you're choosing to use food coloring or sprinkles, is well combined. So sorry about the noise in the background. So I did it in a clear bowl so you can see that things are well combined in there. So with your borax solution, start with less. So you can always add more. You can't take away the borax solution. So I'm going to start with a teaspoon of my borax solution, pouring it from here to here. You can pour or put some glue right in the borax solution. That's kind of fun to do too, because then you can kind of see it starting to form and stick together. I like to do it this way though, because then I can add more borax instead of trying to make it less firm. So the more borax you add, the more firm your silly putty is going to be. So that was just a teaspoon of borax. So you can see that it's starting to pull away from your bowl. So for me, that is way too sticky and runny for silly putty. So it's sort of similar to the bouncy balls that we made a few weeks ago. Sorry, I'm just putting in about another teaspoon of the borax solution. We're not adding cornstarch this time, and we're not wanting it super, super firm to bounce. So that's just 2 teaspoons of the borax solution. And we're not making slime either. So all these things are fairly similar. This sort of resembles slime at this point. And you would add maybe some baking soda in to make slime with borax. Or some people make slime with a contact lens solution and baking soda rather than borax. So again, this is just a little too slimy and sticky for my liking for silly putty. So I'm going to just take that spoon out of there now because it's in the way. Add maybe a half a teaspoon of borax solution in here. And you'll notice with borax that it can become kind of watery. And so what you're doing at this point is snapping that water out, we'll call it. Or you're pushing the water out. So that's a little more like silly putty now. So silly putty is nice because you can stretch it and you can squeeze it as a stress reliever. So the more you play with it here, whoops, the more firm it's going to feel and the more silly putty-like. So it does feel more like silly putty and less like slime at this point, but I'm going to add just a wee bit more borax solution. So in total now I'm going to put another half in. I have put in almost 3 teaspoons of my solution. So again, this is 2 cups of warm or hot water and only a half a teaspoon of borax. And borax you can buy in most grocery stores in like the cleaning aisle or the dish detergent aisle. So again, I'm just sort of squeezing out the water. There's not much extra there though, it gets absorbed by your glue. It's kind of a nice color. And the more it peels away from your fingers, the more it's like silly putty. So you don't want it necessarily sticking to things. Oops. So that's a decent amount that I made there, just with a tablespoon of glue and a tablespoon of water. Okay, so it's completely up to you at this point. Oops. I'm just flinging little bits of it around. Not on purpose, how firm you like it. So it's still a little stringy. Some people might like that. Some people might like to be able to pull it apart like that. The more you play with it, like I said, though, the firmer it will be. It's still a little stringy for my liking, so I'm just gonna tinker with it here and come up with the texture that I like. Maybe you like it more like that though. So I'm just going to work that in. And that's maybe more how you remember, if you're the mom or dad watching, the way you remember silly putty. It's actually a pretty good recipe for something similar to store-bought. Okay, so there you go. And the best way I find to store silly putty, which is sort of how you buy it in the store, is in a plastic egg. So I'm just going to get it off my fingers there, and then you would just store that like that. And that way it can be, let's get the extras off my fingers here. That way you can transport it too with you if you want to take it somewhere. Okay, so it just goes in your egg. Oops, mine's not closing overly well. And for the most part, it will stay the texture that you made it there. All right, well, have fun making silly putty. Have fun using it as a stress relief or a stress fidget toy. And looking forward to our next time on Makerspace. For more information, please visit rwlibrary.ca and to continue to follow us on our various social media feeds. Thanks, bye for now.